Guys, here we are again today with Mayor Richard Thomas. We are going to talk about the past and the projections for the future. And we are going to talk about a lot of stuff that you don't know about it.
That's right, and I thank you for sitting down and reaching out to chat it up, and eager to just talk about my beloved, beautiful Mount Vernon.
So what happened after you left? Life continues, sir?
Yeah, life continues. I mean, sometimes you get knocked down and you gotta get back up. And I'm, thankful that, God has kept my family healthy, happy, and, we're focused on the future. And I loved being there, but when you're confronted with, a network that's so entrenched, that's so toxic, you have to make a choice. And I chose, to stick with my family and not go into their trap.
Now, Mayor, do you think that there was a conspiracy to bring you down? And if there was one, what were the motives for this conspiracy?
Well, first, I just want to acknowledge, I have some blame in this, right? I went into government seeking to change it. I went into government on this pragmatic, ideal idea that, you can do more work for the people and you can do good. But whenever you make change, you ask for trouble. And that's where, again, when confronted with a lot of the challenges that came up along the way, and looking back, I could have handled things differently. But when you go through each step methodically and see that it's hard to handle things differently because everything was blocked. And you talk about, Mayor, you mentioned the conspiracy. Absolutely, there was a conspiracy. Just look at what's going on in Mount Vernon since I stepped back. All of a sudden, there's money to pay for garbage trucks. There's money to pay for toilet paper for seniors. There's, all of a sudden money to even fix Memorial Field. And you can go around and ask all the questions of why was it blocked in the first place? But that blame frame is the wrong way to look at it. You got to look at the contributions in the system overall. First, why was Memorial Field illegally dumped on? How come nobody was held accountable for that? And that's where you just kind of ask yourself, why was the city in denial and fighting me on just cleaning it up so we can move on and get the field back open?
So you went against the establishment?
And that was apparent because the political bosses were not pleased with the direction I was going. And it obviously struck, a variety of third rails, for lack of a better term, because when I got into office, I started asking questions. And one of the questions I asked was, can we get a new audit, a fresh audit? Can we get a new set of eyes in here to look at the books? And when I started asking those questions more aggressively, I found myself indicted. For what? And that's where you have to know that if you're somebody out there that's watching this objectively, it's always about money, power, and respect. And the money, it's big money too.
Mayor, let's just move a little bit to the side so we can get a correct frame.
Okay,
Moving
sure.
That's good.
There we
Good
go.
enough. So, do you think the campaign funds that brought all this up, was this an excuse to undermine your work? Did they use that? Or did you actually make some errors or judgmental errors?
There were errors, obviously. But the way due process is supposed to work is, for campaigns in particular, the State Board of Elections, they must review your filings. They must deem, an error. They must make a referral to an outside agency to address any of the issues if they feel it's criminal. And that's the process. But what I can tell you is the State Board of Elections never finished reviewing my files. And state law is expressly clear that the Attorney General does not have the jurisdiction to prosecute campaign infractions without a referral from the State Board of Elections. They never received one. They never got one. They literally lied about it to us. So they created this trap to put me in this situation because the money that's involved, the money that I've been questioning in Mount Vernon is massive. It's at least $95 million on our books. And when I brought this to their attention, I asked for the audit, I asked for their help, and they came after me. So it's obvious that someone really powerful, someone with a much stronger network than mine, much stronger than the people in Mount Vernon, was basically able to kind of get the system to attack the person that's just simply questioning how to handle a very, very big problem.
Are you saying that there is a hidden hand somewhere manipulating those that are there now? Because those that are there now were those that were talking against you.
Mm-hmm.
They were the face of it. There is no money for this, there is no money for that, there is no money for toilet paper.
Yep. And now all of a sudden, everything's quiet. And all the people that I, off-boarded from City Hall due to performance and vision differences, they're all back. And all these people were working for the old guard. And you ask yourself, if you went to go get a permit, can you get a permit today? How long does it take? The backlog is immense. Crime, which way did crime go? You got all these officers suspended for accusations of overtime abuse, but when you look at the documents, you see they unfunded many of the positions in the police department. They created these situations, and we worked our way out. You had Chief Zadie, the architect behind Mount Vernon's precipitous reduction in crime. He was suspended for alleged abuse of overtime when Sean Harris, when he was commissioner, wrote letters advocating to the council to properly fund the department because of the overtime use by the school resource officer program. We put those officers in the schools to protect the kids. But when you look at it very carefully, you see this new accusation. Oh, there's overtime abuse. We're going after people that abuse overtime. What are you talking about? The record is very clear that everybody should know what the problems are, and we've been asking for them to be addressed in a very civil, orderly, managerial way. But when you have politics as the problem, that's the problem. It's bad politics, and they made it personal.
Sean Harris, he was your commissioner, your
Yep.
police commissioner. I spoke with him many times while you were the mayor of Mount Vernon.
Mm-hmm.
We spoke about crime going down while he was the police commissioner.
Mm-hmm.
He was in agreement with procedure. I guess a lot of the procedures that were then are there now because it's the same man, same police commissioner. How can he serve both?
Well, look, I can't explain his decisions, but what I can speak to is when you look at the performance of the police department, and you look at the people that were suspended, and you look at my administration as a whole, you see that each person that was doing the right thing got attacked for some personality issue. Nobody was really attacked on the policy matters. And that's something that everybody just got to take a careful look at and know that that's the underhand, that's the invisible hand, that's the distraction, that's the quote unquote, chaos that was sowed to create this political perception that there were problems, but there weren't. So let's speak to, Chief Zadie, and most recently I heard that Lieutenant Marcachulli was suspended for something. But look at the performance of the motorcycle unit. They brought in over $2 million worth in tickets on overweight trucks that destroy our roads, and yet that unit was dismantled. Marcachulli, all of a sudden suspended for what? And they want to write about him as if he's this threat to society. Yes, there was an issue in the past where he had an incident in his service, but got training. He was exonerated, and he had the bright idea to make sure that our streets were better policed, targeting trucks that destroy our roads. That brought in over $2 million. You look at his salary plus the other people in the unit salary, take away $400,000 just for starters. They cover their costs. That 1.5 million goes back to the taxpayers. But yet, that unit, that focus has been dismantled. Why? It's obviously personal. Why would Commissioner Harris dismantle a unit that brought revenue into the city? Why would he dismantle a unit that brought pride? Because they did, funerals for, stakeholders in the community. I just don't get it. It doesn't make sense. Councilman Wallace, who's the acting mayor, it just doesn't make sense that our relationship with the Drug Enforcement Agency is all of a sudden on the rocks. They won't come into the Mount Vernon Police Department. Our relationship with the FBI and ATF, all strained. Could it be that he bailed out a drug kingpin and they're concerned? I don't know. But these are the things that go on that people don't pay attention to because it's too much. There's too many things happening. And you add in Trump every day pissing people off one way or another, it doesn't help, with the information overload. And I throw that out there because that's exactly what happens. People, it's hard for the truth to unravel. It takes time. But that's why I think it's important to just continue to put the truth on the table and let Mount Vernon know we have some choices to make. And we can go up or down. I believe Mount Vernon can stay on the track to go up, but we're going to have to just confront some real concerns that are out there.
Now, I remember speaking with you before, and Mount Vernon was going to move forward. That was your motto. Do you think that Mount Vernon will continue to move forward?
Yeah, absolutely. It must. And, no matter who's mayor, no matter who's in the government, the people of Mount Vernon must choose to not tolerate and accept, the abysmal performance that they've seen. And people in Mount Vernon must carefully scrutinize. If they want to, stick with blame, fine. I'll take blame. I take responsibility for, things that could have been done better. No problem. My hands are up on that.
Give me an example, Mayor. Give me an example of something that you did that perhaps now thinking back, say, well, maybe I should have done this a little different. So let's do a little bit of a self-criticism to yourself.
Sure. So, when I first came into office, I was focused on a positive sum game. What does that mean? It means, look, we have our differences. How can we work together? What can we do to make this a positive situation? My political enemies were playing a zero-sum game. There was never going to be a yes no matter what. No matter how many times I worked to invite the city council, no matter how many times I called a meeting with the clergy to sit down around a table to work out our differences and issues, I should have realized going way back that there was never really going to be any positive outcome when you have political enemies that have $95 million that they don't want known to the public. So in terms of handling things differently, I should have been a bit more forthcoming with the facts and the figures and the real concerns with our finances. But I was doing my best to preserve Mount Vernon's fiscal integrity. And that was something that I would want to revisit. Another thing, just thinking politically, firing Reggie Lafayette's son, I hear all the time was like the straw that broke the camel's back. But, when you're new and someone curses you out the very first time they see you in the building in front of everybody, and you try to have a conversation, and you hear about these conversations, at the bar or behind closed doors, and there's no even hint of they want to talk about it. Maybe firing his son was not the right thing to do. Maybe it wasn't. But what I do know is that, it could have been handled differently, but that was one of the decisions that had to be made because, again, when you're new, you're coming in trying to make adjustments. Don't wear your hat on backwards. Don't wear your hat inside City Hall. Pick up your pants. Those little things you would think are just obvious, courtesy.
Common sense.
Yeah,
right.
Common sense. But the culture in Mount Vernon, in the government, it didn't have that. It was very much taken for granted. And there's very well documented letters from the federal government pointing out that there were no accounting systems. There were studies done that point out that, many of the departments were on paper and pencil. So everything had to be built from scratch. And when you're building a government from scratch, you start learning things. And you ask yourself, what did you learn? What did you find? And, I found major liabilities on our books.
Mayor, now that you mentioned no accounting system,
Sorry.
was that no accounting system by design to prevent accountability, or was a lack of knowledge?
I believe that the system performs as designed. And when you note that this is a government, this is not a small business that's private. This is a public government. And the same people that were in charge of this government for the past 2 decades profess themselves to be great, wise, experienced government, administrators. But year after year, it's the same problem. You can't see the books. The finances are funky. The potholes get bigger and worse. The street lights were out. Now the street lights are on. But, how did the street lights even get on? It took a fight in court. So I can only tell you that it's my firm belief that it was by design. The government was designed to be a facade, but nothing behind it. And when I started putting in these structures, these management systems, and started measuring the work that we're doing, you started to see big problems. For example, in the building department, the former plumbing superintendent was running his own business during city time. And the revenues of the building department netted out to be $17,000 for a building department. White Plains and New Rochelle were averaging over $1 million in revenue net. The moment I started making some changes there, our revenue shot up to the same amount as New Rochelle and White Plains. Mm-hmm. And you just ask yourself, what was going on in the building department before I got there?
Mayor, you know that this is live. We're live streaming, yep. And we have some questions. So we might be jumping from topic to topic based on some questions.
Sure.
Okay. So we have a question here from Benny Rundell.
Okay.
Okay.
Hi, Benny.
And her question is, we would like to hear about water funds, being used to paying for your own private lawyers. Is there any truthful to it? Is there anything you're going to talk about?
Yeah.
That?
So let's start with go back to the Attorney General. So when Schneiderman was Attorney General, he said he opened up an investigation into no-show jobs into my administration, and he focused on the water department. And when you look at the substance of what his comments are, he investigated the government of Mount Vernon. Of course, there are costs associated with that. And everybody wants to try and spin this and try and distract away from the real problem here. Is think about that. Now, if you're a public official or if you're just John Q. citizen, of course you're going to automatically assume that the prosecutor has the high ground, the moral high ground. But we saw what happened to Schneiderman. God don't like ugly, right? Schneiderman ultimately stepped down in disgrace, as he should have. He beat women, he abused alcohol, and he lied a lot. He also abused the resources of the Attorney General's office. However, one of the things that's not discussed is how the Attorney General's office defended Schneiderman. They spent massive amounts of money on that. And then you parallel now, okay, Mount Vernon mayor to New York City mayor. New York City is actually younger than Mount Vernon. Mount Vernon was formed and founded as a city before New York. Our charter is older than New York. The Tammany Hall structure that everybody knows about is in place still in Mount Vernon. It changed in New York. I mention this because when you look at New York City and you look at the investigations into the mayor of New York, from the federal government, the state, and the Manhattan DA, they investigated his campaign, they investigated his government, and the city of New York paid those bills. Why? Because the government was investigated, and it just so happened that they were examining if there was a correlation between the campaign and the administration of government. They spent over $3 million on de Blasio's defense. And guess what? It gets better. The comptroller of New York vetoed the use of those funds. And then you go a step further and say, well, how did it get paid? The mayor used the charter in New York to go ahead and use those funds anyway. And when you have equal footing, when you can defend yourself, then you can have almost a fair fight in the court. But, look, their whole tactic was bring him in court, make sure he can't defend himself, because that's the only way you're going to get him out of office from dealing with this, this $95 million that I brought to their attention. Look, just ask yourself. I brought this to them, asking them, what should I do with this? These are federal dollars that came to the city. The city's tasked with this. And now we got this $95 million that's out there that our taxpayers may have to start paying back with penalties and interest to the federal government. What do we do? And then I get indicted for some craziness before I can even go into the grand jury office to state my case to the grand jury. And you just ask yourself, how can someone that reserves their rights to get in front of a grand jury then be indicted without going before them?
Before the grand jury.
And then you look at the politics and you say, you know what, $95 million is a lot of money.
Strong motives, huh?
Yeah, strong motive.
Now, I have a question here from somebody who you know,
Sure.
John Jones
Hi.
Jr. John is asking, why was Sean Peterson Howard dismissed? I know there is a whole thing around it,
Yeah.
so perhaps you want to take your time and tell us
Well,
why.
You know, I have a lot of personal love for Sean. Like, she helped.
She knows you since you're a young boy, right?
Knows me a long time. So, a lot of personal love. And, you know, professionally, we disagree. And the same thing with Ernie Davis. Personally, I have a lot of, you know, respect. Professionally, disagree. Professionally, you know, not pleased with a lot of the decisions he made. But just I'm going to keep it there for right now. But I want to flip to, you know, the pattern and the practice of selective and arbitrary enforcement. And you look at the Mt Vernon Ethics Board as an example. You know, Lisa Copeland, who's a friend of Sean Patterson Howard, also the best friend of the state attorney general. She hasn't filed her election filings ever. Ever. Yet, she can go ahead and do whatever she wants. Her ethics filings with the city, also questionable. Me, look, I went to great lengths to comply. I went through the process. I went to the State Board of Elections. Hey, can we work this out? You know, there's an accounting error. Can we please fix it civilly like everybody else? But yet somehow that process was rigged. And it happened before everybody's eyes. And that's where a Manhattan judge called out the AG and said, hey, your investigation into the mayor's campaign finances are illegal. However, he could not stop the prosecution because they went ahead and got the indictment before he could rule. That happened. But what really pushed me into the corner of saying, you know what, I gotta step back and really, address this differently, because I didn't feel confident that the court process was going to be favorable given all the things that happened that the public could not know, which was certain defenses, like calling Schneiderman in as a witness was blocked. But nonetheless, I share this now because you got to know that this $95 million is real. The feds are asking for at least $3 million back now. That's a 6% tax hit to the people. And if the feds keep going down this rabbit hole of the 95, Mount Vernon can face a serious set of consequences.
But Mayor, I have to interrupt you. I understand what you're saying, but you still did not answer me.
Mm-hmm.
Why did you dismiss Miss Patterson?
Well, look, the past is the past, right?
Yeah, but
And
you're here on an open up, candid interview.
I got it, but the past is the past. I mean, look, there were issues with communication. We received an inquiry from the feds on a matter. She felt that she didn't have to disclose or work with the law department on it. There were other issues that came up that she
Like
felt.
what? Be specific. This is an open heart interview, right? No holds barred. So
we're holding the bars.
Oh, we're holding the bars.
No, but seriously, there were differences, and with those managerial differences, we parted ways, and we parted ways in a way where I kept the door open just in case that things turned out that they were going to be all right. But the more and more we got closer to understanding, we never really got an explanation as to why she took certain managerial positions, but writing off $95 million and making that a full threat to the taxpayers of Mount Vernon was not something I was prepared to do. But as you can see, the first thing that happened when I stepped out of office was they made money available to finish closing the books of the Urban Renewal Agency and try and position the city for an audit, and whoever's in charge can then determine how they want to treat these off-balance sheet, unclassified $95 million in debt that nobody knew about.
Well, Mayor, I spoke with Ms. Patterson,
Mm-hmm.
and she said that the reason why she was dismissed was because you wanted her to do certain things that were not legal or not right, and when she refused, or she did not comply with your, I don't want to say demands, but your requirements, that actually broke the camel's back. Now, what I don't know is what were the things that you asked. Maybe today's.
I'm trying not to laugh because it's like, this is where, God, again, gives people what they deserve, right? So here it is, $95 million, everybody. How is she going to handle it? That's it. Let her figure out if she wants to make that the taxpayer's responsibility or if she's going to go after the people that actually got the money. And that's what I did. I went after the people that got this free money. And I believe that we don't have to pay back these federal dollars that were misused by the past administrations. And if she wants to write it off, she can write it off. Or if Wallace is going to do it before she gets in and she can go like this, then God bless her. But I'm still going to make myself available to help her. Nothing that I've ever asked to happen has been, asked to do anything illegal or improper. The first question I always ask is legal, ethical, moral. And I always ran things through the attorneys. First Maria Donovan was one. She was a special counsel to the mayor. Then you had the corporation counsel, who again, we asked for guidance on how to deal with this missing money, these threats to the taxpayers. And all of a sudden, we're the targets. Think about that. We weren't trying to blow the whistle. We were just saying, look, if there's a way to structure a resolution around this without anybody getting quote unquote hurt, then fine. But obviously, $95 billion is somewhere. It's not with the taxpayers of Mount Vernon. It's a liability of the people. And we have to figure out how to deal with it. It's on our books. And I can only emphasize that, look, I live in Mount Vernon. I love Mount Vernon. I want Mount Vernon to flourish. All this political finger pointing back and forth, in my opinion, is part of the bigger problem. There's groups out there that want to carve up Mount Vernon the same way Russia and China is carving up Syria. They want us to fight each other so that the people fail. I want the people to succeed. There are hundreds of jobs out there that our kids can get. Our taxes can actually go down. Our streets can be smooth if we can get these stupid politics out of the way. And despite all the hurt feelings, a lot of people betrayed me. A lot of people made false claims.
A lot of hypocrisy too, Mayor.
Right.
A lot of people that I saw that was next to you now.
Let that go. Let that go. Pass the past. I'm not going to carry that weight. What I'm carrying is a love for my people in the city of Mount Vernon. I want the people in the city to thrive. And I want to see our taxes as a whole go down. And they can. They should. But right now, they're not. And that's why I say, look, no matter what happens, I'm eager to support the next mayor because it's for Mount Vernon. That's what we must do.
Who do you support for the next mayor?
Well,
we have two potentials.
I'm voting row A. I'm sticking with the Democrats. I think that's where we need to be. And, I won't go into all of, the transactions where I've sought to make a trade with the city council, right? Or I tried to work with them on a variety of things, and they've reneged. Funding on Memorial Field, blocked by, the acting mayor now. Think about it, right? Just because the comptroller and him have a good relationship doesn't mean that the government should stop on everything. But that's what they did. And that's where I say, you got to look at their actions and say, man, you're a bad person, but God will deal with that. That's not for me to deal with.
But Mayor, let's rewind a little bit. In the beginning, we spoke about that invisible hand that probably is pulling the...
Yeah.
So perhaps the politicians that we see, the politician that blocked you, or maybe it's not them. Maybe it's somebody else behind them.
No, it's a little bit of everything. It's it's the popular reverend in town that claimed to pay close to $500,000 in taxes, but didn't.
And who's that?
Maybe it's the Democratic Party bosses that were unhappy with the fact that, decisions that I was making focused purely on performance and not politics. I get it. There needs to be, a room for political conversation. I get that. But if your job is to drive the bus and the bus has to get there on time to pick up the seniors and you're constantly late, you're going to be held accountable. I'm not going to keep saying, you know what? That's so-and-so's friend. No, get there. Be early. Serve the people. Be grateful you have a job. that's what really matters. And me, growing up in Mount Vernon, look, I grew up pretty hard. Food was always a challenge. Access to illicit activity, be it drugs and guns, were prevalent in the streets. A lot of my friends growing up got killed. So for me, it was a labor of love, and it stays a labor of love, because I think about all my friends that could have gone a different way had this $95 million been invested into the public, into parks, into programs. Think about that. And I want Mount Vernon to just focus on that. Forget me, forget all the entertaining lies that we're told. Just look at the promise and redeem it for the future. We can do youth sports in Mount Vernon for $500,000, track, basketball, football, esports, gaming sports. We can create so many different, opportunities for our kids and families from the age of, 2 all the way up to 22, using these federal funds. That's what they're supposed to be for. But guess what? They never went to the public. They went to some developer's pocket. And so it was a lot of everything. This group was unhappy that their secret was exposed. They said they paid taxes. They didn't. The electric bill in Mount Vernon was 3 times the rate. I fought tooth and nail for over a year and a half to get that, off of our books, to reduce Mount Vernon's electricity bill. But guess what? Those savings never made it to the people because they kept it behind a plated glass. They just said, keep fighting Rich Thomas, keep bringing him into court, make him look like a problem, because that's what people understand. And at the end of the day, my view on the primary election, it wasn't fair what Reggie did, but he did it, and I didn't have the money to fight him in court, but that's their strategy. So my message, I guess, to the people is stay out of court.
Stay out of court. Avoid litigation at all costs, right?
Yeah.
Now, I see here, a few people supporting you, others not, which was expected.
Oh, the trolls are there, man.
Yeah, another question.
I mean, $95 million can buy a lot of people to talk.
Another question.
And lie.
Mr. Thomas, what happened to the 365? I don't know what that means. Do you know what that means?
I have no idea.
I have no idea. That's the question.
Ask Microsoft. They have a program called 365.
Yes. That's the question. I thought that you would know what the question meant. Mayor, there's going to be some changes in Mount Vernon.
Mm-hmm.
Things will happen.
Mm-hmm.
The election is November 5th.
Yep.
What do you see is happening? Who will be elected mayor? Because before we get there, you and Ms. Howard had a difference of only a few points, which tells us that the majority, or lots and lots of the voters in Mount Vernon were happy with you.
So I was told before the election that I was going to lose by 203 votes, and I did. So when you ask yourself about the questions of, that I raised with the numbers, and we can get into that, I'll let some public policy group investigate that. It is what it is, and I decided to step back and really move on, because, there's no reason for people to focus on the toxicity. Let's focus on what's going to be the real test. And the real test for this next administration that Sean Howard will go on to run is, what are you going to do with the finances? You got this $95 million liability. You also got the sewers. You got Memorial Field. You got issues that need to be addressed now. Now it's on your desk, and you're going to need a team of people that are going to make the best choices. And when you think about the team of people that I had Chantel O'Carter. She's a former litigator, daughter of Mount Vernon, and they would not pay her as the commissioner of planning for over a year. She has a federal court case against the city for it, and yet the press never even picked it up or covered it. Think about that. In this era of Me Too, you have a black woman saying to another black woman, pay me my fair rate, respect me and my family. But yet the people that I put in place to do the right thing, everybody that did the right thing got attacked. Others that were, fixing tickets are still there. But that's something that, you work to address. You try to say, look, These are things that you should not be doing, and you work to address them. But I just tell you that, and I tell everybody, look, support the next administration. It doesn't matter who's mayor. What matters is that Mount Vernon prospers. And if there's a way to get our taxes to go down in this era of, no more deductions, everybody's hurting in the wallet right now. And middle class homeowners are going to hurt even more because Mount Vernon has made a series of decisions, the most recent one being fight me and then attack my administration, attack the people that are doing the good work, like Chief Zadie, Mark Achuli, like, I dare to say Dan Jones, who put together a building department that did not rely on a wink and a nod to get a permit. He put in a system where you can put your papers in without having to go to the department. But all of a sudden, that's dismantled. Think about it. We were making the government work for people. And I just emphasize that whatever it is, there are many plans, there are blueprints behind. My hope is that for Memorial Field in particular, that they don't abandon the plan that was put forward to build 12 tennis courts in the back. And the way you do that, everybody, is very simple. There's a plan that we put forward. And at the time, Keller Tennis agreed to it. And all of a sudden, here come the politics and the troublemakers. They backed out of it. But the plan is simple. You have to move the tennis courts back 50 feet. Ernie built the tennis courts on the track. Come on. That's just, how come that's not, criminal? Think about it. But nonetheless, here we are. Move it back 50 feet, raise it 12 to 18 feet, and next thing you know, you have a big wall, big retaining wall. You still have the steel frame for the building that can be, refurbished to go higher. And you have an ADA accessible tennis facility, plus other park space in the back. And you activate, a park that's been inactive for more than, 10 years. But nobody wants to look at these options, and that's the type of questions that we need the public to ask. We need the parent that's concerned about their kids to ask, what is the city going to do to keep my family safe? We need the taxpayers to ask, what are you going to do to lower my burden? And as I look out, I look ahead and I see that, the road ahead for Mount Vernon is going to be a bit rocky. But I think, Sean's going to get it together. She's going to be fine because they are going to prop her up. And I'm fine with that because as long as Mount Vernon benefits, I don't care. I ran because I was pissed off that Ernie Davis and his gang were dumping on Mount Vernon, taking, $95 million and giving it away as loans to their friends, and among other things, right? That's why I ran, because I felt that the corruption that I saw needed to be confronted. But I never expected my allies, like the allies I expected to have at the top level in the state, to come after me, but they did. So here we are.
If Ms. Patterson, you seem to be very confident that Ms. Patterson will win.
Yes, you can win.
But what if not? Are you implying that the corrupt administrations of the past would be some of the people who are still there? Maybe the person who's running against Ms. Patterson, is he part of this?
He obviously is. I mean, he went and did a lot of work for the previous administration. You saw those projects riddled with cost overruns. I mean, come on, just look at it and just ask yourself, how can that be? And then yet there's no coverage of it. There's no investigation into it. It's just like, again, if I bailed out a drug kingpin, that would still be in the news today. That would be front page. They would dedicate a whole column to it. Richard Thomas was wearing a gray shirt the day he went and did this. But for some reason, everybody just wants to be like, yeah.
Must be somebody really powerful behind this whole thing.
You have to ask him that, not me.
Well, but not just ask him, because I'm sure that if I ask him that question directly, he's not going to say, oh yeah, you caught me, Ben, yes. Okay. But let's talk about facts. Mm-hmm. I remember when you had the auditors coming to the city of Mount Vernon, mm-hmm. to the controller's office. Mm-hmm. They were called off.
Yeah.
The next day, if I'm not mistaken.
3 days later.
3 days later, they were called off. That must be someone very powerful that if there is suspicious of corruption, there is a request to come and check the books, do an audit on the books. and within 3 days you call me back. Aren't you interested in knowing where is this money at?
Yeah, and I'm laughing because it's like, look, I just don't, I don't want good people to be discouraged. I want good people to be encouraged. I want good people to say, you know what, even though that happened, we got to keep getting back up and going at the problems and fix them. And even though the state auditors left Mount Vernon literally high and dry after they came in to do this audit to validate certain things or investigate certain things, I look and I see, like, on the school district side, they did an audit of the school district in Mount Vernon. They found that $13 million was misappropriated, and all these rules and systems that they do have in place were compromised. And one person in particular in the school district was able to bypass that whole checks and balance system, spend close to $1 million on all sorts of stuff. And the state auditors said, you know what, just don't do that again. You're talking about $13 million. I went, where'd it go? And they come at me for $13,000. I point out to them a $95 million liability, and they say, oh, we're leaving City Hall. Goodbye. Has to be somebody powerful, very powerful. But you know what? I believe that the people of Mount Vernon are smarter than them, and I believe the people of Mount Vernon are going to hold them more accountable, especially since the taxes are getting worse and crime is going up, and the people see the hypocrisy on full display. So my belief and my faith remains with the people, and I'm going to keep it there.
Well, in defense of the current mayor, I spoke with him about the acting mayor. Spoke with him about, I think it's $8 million for past bad loans and repetitive loans to people who had not paid the prior loans. Mm-hmm. Okay, and he told me that he's on top of that.
Okay.
So hopefully,
he canceled the lawsuit against them. So I don't know how he could be on top of it.
So why would? Please explain. What do you mean he canceled?
We had a federal lawsuit and we had a state lawsuit ready to be filed, and he canceled them both.
Why?
That's how he's on top of it.
But if you had to make a judgment, if you had to give us possible reasons to cancel that lawsuit, that is designed to recover funds that don't belong to him, that belong to the taxpayers of Mount Vernon.
Ask him.
But I'm asking you.
Yeah.
You sitting here, maybe I will ask him this question next time I see him. But now I'm asking you not why he did it, but why do you think he did it?
I let Facebook weigh in. Let the social media mob, the righteous trollers that want to, focus on, esoteric points. You guys that are out there that are paid by the opposition, ask them the question. If you're a righteous, person, as they profess to be as part of the social media mob, which we know they're not, come on, go for it. Come on, John Jones, ask those questions that Rue just asked, and you'll see that it just may so happen to be that Wallace's company worked on one of those projects. Can't tell you. Let him answer that question.
So there might be a motivation behind it.
Yeah.
Now, was the dirt of Memorial Field, was it contaminated or it wasn't contaminated?
It was contaminated. I mean, the DEC wrote a report, and everybody, please just look at this. For example, it's like Trump and is saying, he didn't make a phone call to the Ukraine. He made a phone call. We're not saying it's a good phone call or a bad phone call, but he made a phone call. The DEC wrote a report.
Talk about the perfect phone call.
There you go. His perfect phone call. So, just like Trump, they're trying to say, oh, this is not true. And you look at that tactic, there's a pattern in practice of trying to make the facts fiction. The DEC report is real. We have to pay a fine, we have to clean up the material, we have to get it out of there. And ironically, this is probably why they don't like Joe Spezio. He knew that there were people inside the former administration, or not just him, but everybody knew it, that they were in the trash collection business illegally, bringing in all that illegal construction debris and dumping it at a park and then covering up with a tennis court is criminal. But nobody went after that. I went after that. I refused to allow them to, try and talk to me about all this stuff, and then they try to shift the focus from, oh, what did you do? Man, I made many of the systems inside Mount Vernon's government from scratch. I brought in people, good people, to do the work, like Chief Zadie, worked with people like Mark Achula, who had these great ideas to increase revenue of the department, worked with people in the building department that wanted to be there, that wanted to do the right thing, worked with the people to make sure recreation was actually about recreation and doing things every weekend for different parts of our community. But guess what? You have illegal dumping at Memorial Field, and everybody wants to cover for that action. And I'm just like, it just goes to show you how deep the incestuous, toxic, corrupt nature that was there. And I just know that we have to keep pushing through. Memorial Field is moving forward, which is a good thing. But, right now, I was politically injured. And, I'll recover. I'm recovering from that political injury. But I'm going to continue to focus on being successful for my friends, my family, most importantly, and keep my faith in God. And that's where it's going to be. Let God deal with the rest.
Now, Mayor, there is questions about I believe it's $35,000 or $50,000 that you received.
I never received it. Yeah, I never received it.
But why were you going to receive it? Why was that money to be paid to? Was that a trade? Let me finish my question, if you don't mind. Was there a trade-off that you get paid off? You get paid off, and you will not expose certain people. Was that a deal? Was part of your plea bargain help uncover some illegalities or corruption within the?
I mean, look.
Can you talk on that?
Well, what I can tell you is it was a settlement. The council voted on the settlement.
Why?
It was a settlement. We made a settlement of some of our differences, not all of them, and the council voted on it 4-1. And that raises another question, though, by the way. So Wallace had this idea of making the settlement in the first place, right? It made it to the papers with the clergy and all this stuff. And I basically said, okay, just give time for me and key members of the administration to transition out. This way we can give reports, we can make all this stuff transparent and have an orderly transition out. They didn't want that because they knew that this URA stuff, right, the $95 million that I keep talking about, was coming full circle. And there were other things, Memorial Field being another one. They had this plot, this scheme to try and, I guess, win the mayoralty for Wallace somehow by trying to get me out of office early so he could run from the seat. And that's characteristic of how the Democratic Party often at the county level under Reggie's leadership, and I'm not speaking fiction here, he has an approach where he tries to get people in seats on unexpired terms, and then, they run from the seat. They look like an incumbent, and that's how people, he ultimately wins. Look, that's politics. It's a great strategy. It's worked for him. He's been the party chair for 20 years. But there's also this rumor that that's at play in Mount Vernon. What I believe is going to be an issue that, next Mayor Howard is going to have to deal with is the prospect of Wallace being put back onto the council. It's my understanding that, they're going to remove the controller. They're going to appoint one of the council members or possibly a very well-respected public official in Mount Vernon to that seat.
Remove the controller?
Uh-huh.
Controller is an elected official.
She is, but if she can't get bonded insurance, which she's supposed to have, she can't serve. And that's something that I was raising since day one, but they never wanted to act on it.
But you couldn't do it, so now they might be.
Yeah, they're going to do it. They're going to either let Wallace do the appointment, or they're going to have Sean Howard appoint somebody. And don't be surprised if the politics, brings up an establishment candidate person, and then that means there's a seat open on the council. It's my understanding that they're also going to remove the city clerk, and the city clerk's going to be replaced with possibly a council member, or somebody else. But the thing is, you're going to have 2 seats that can be appointed to the council on unexpired terms, and these people will run as if they were elected to office. And you have this, whole political hand just taken over the whole democratic process. And that's why I said, we need to do charter revision. And we put together a well-rounded, very apolitical group of people to revise the city charter. And guess what? The whole thing got canceled. Guess by who? Guess. By Wallace and Reggie. So you ask yourself, why would they want to stop charter revision? Why would they not want to make the system better? Why do they want to keep it the same? Why did everything get blocked on me? Why? It was a political assassination. But the people are seeing it, and I keep my faith in the people.
Well, there is a lot of whys.
Mm-hmm.
Why aren't they going after the money that is missing? Why aren't they exposing all the things that happened in the past? But it seems like the plan is already designed to continue on the status quo.
Well, my hope is that we disrupt the status quo. And that's why I'm going to make myself available again to sit down with you and talk. I'm going to make myself available to do more conversations. I'm going to make myself available to just comment on what's going on. And, if it's right, it's right. If it's wrong, it's wrong. Like, cleaning up Memorial Field was right. I went. So what? Wallace was standing there fronting like he did something. So what? It's getting done.
It's getting done.
That's all I care about.
That was your vision.
Yeah, get it done.
Okay.
Get it done, get out the way, now let's keep moving.
You were very big into infrastructure for Mount Vernon.
Mm-hmm.
How did you left that off?
Well, look, I think we should leave off there. In our next sit down, we should talk about it.
Okay.
Because we have there's a lot of opportunity, a lot of jobs, and I want to focus everybody on that because that's where we need to focus. That's the only way we're going to stop gentrification. That's the only way we're going to stop Mt Vernon from being sold out. That's the only way we're going to deal with taxes in the city. We have to build up business. And I'd love to talk business next time we talk.
Now, Mayor, you are a young man.
Mm-hmm.
And I must say, a very bright man.
Thanks.
Okay? And I think your political ambitions and career did not end here.
Not yet. Not yet. I can tell you right now I'm taking a break.
That's it. So it's temporary.
Temporary.
So what are your plans? Are you going to give us a little exclusive here? What is your vision? Let's say this interview is happening 3 years from now.
Mm-hmm.
What would I be asking you? Or where would you be seeing yourself 3 years from now?
I see myself having a nice cup of coffee and watching my kids grow up.
Come on, man.
I'm gonna just focus on right now, and right now is just providing for my family. And if anybody is still questioning that $35,000, they were negged on it the same way they were negged on funding Memorial Field. Could I use the settlement? Sure, but it's not going to stop me from doing what I got to do to take care of my family, my wife who's been through a lot, and my kids. I mean, just think about it. People at the highest level literally lied to get me into this position. And you know what? God is going to deal with that. And people that again, betrayed me in the past, they're going to have to deal with the problems that they claim were not problems. So let's see how God works this out. And I'm just going to tell you, right, 3 years from now, I'm going to be talking about God and my faith and how it found me through.
So you're a true politician. I ask you one question. You give me an answer that has nothing to do with my question.
It's called leadership, not politics.
Okay. Or call it whatever you want. But the thing is, I want to know your political ambitions.
I don't have a crystal ball.
But you have ambitions.
I can tell you that I do. I love serving the public, but right now I'm focused on private opportunities, and the public is always going to be a passion of mine. And again, don't be surprised if you see me, supporting people that, people would never expect me to support. If you're doing the right policy move, I'm going to support it. I don't care about our personal differences. I don't take this personal. I just don't, because I learned that at Memorial Field. I learned that through sports, and when you look at sports, it's one of the greatest, teachers that are available, especially for our kids. So my hope is that, the next mayor gets it right. Focus on youth sports. Focus on the people. Build up the infrastructure. Just do the right thing, and you don't have to worry about me.
Whoever that mayor is.
Whoever that mayor is. But I'm going to be there to help Mount Vernon no matter what. The people are worth it, and I love my city. I love my community. And people, we have to see each other. You don't have to be uncivil. And I hope to see everybody at the reopening of Johnny's Pizza.
Well, Mayor, we're going to come to a conclusion, but I'm going to end up with this.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, nowadays with the national politics, there is someone who says what you see is not what you see, what you hear is not what you hear,
Right.
And now they added one last line: what you read is not what you read. Now, I was at the Memorial Field last time you were there.
Yeah.
On the groundbreaking, and I shot a picture, you and acting Mayor Thomas. I got a whole bunch of questions. Is this for real?
Yeah. Well, Mt Vernon did get catfished for certain. I mean, like he definitely, put himself politically in a position to, take over everything that I was doing, and then all of a sudden claim it was his idea and his stuff. Come on, man. Like that's just, it's unfortunate, but I don't view myself as that high and mighty. I view myself as just a regular guy. But he made it his pure aspiration to sell his soul to do what virtually happened politically. And again, that's why I say God's going to deal with all the people that did what they had to do to create this. But nonetheless, I just know that I just wish that things were better managed. I look at the crime numbers and they're going up. Look at the overtime numbers in police departments, they're going up. Look at the Halloween event that just happened, there was a riot. Why? Because you don't have a relationship with the people. You just don't. You got the relationship with the bad people that want to try and convince the people that they are being well served, but people know they're not. People know the truth, and that's why my faith stays with the people. And even though, Sean, who's going to make history being the first female mayor of Mount Vernon, even though, we had our differences, I still support that. I think, at its root, I just hope that she does the right things. But only time will tell.
Yeah.
Only time will tell.
Differences are okay.
Yeah.
No, that's healthy. We don't have to agree. With my own wife, I don't agree with everything she does, and she doesn't agree with everything I do. But we still have a relationship. So not agreeing with.
And that's why we parted ways. And so again, I don't take this personal. I know that this is odd for people to hear, but that's what it is. My focus is focusing on my faith, finding a way forward, and just keeping my family a priority. And that's why you will always see me, upbeat, optimistic. The enemy's not going to kill my joy. They're not going to kill my spirit. That's what they were trying to take away. And I'm not trying to be trapped in the past with all these baseless accusations. Again, these things were politically created because the powers that be that benefited from Mount Vernon being down, that made millions of dollars off the back of the people, and I'm pointing to 95 million, that's a lot of money to make people do extreme things to keep this secret. But you know what? My hope is that the people hold everybody accountable and we get this right.
On this note, we're going to conclude this interview. May have regards to the wife and to the little guy.
Thank you.
And hopefully we will have another interview with Mayor Richard Thomas where we can address other issues. And if you have any questions, please post them, and next time we will address them, or Mayor can answer those questions on our own chat on the Mount Vernon thread. So stay tuned for more. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
Until next time.
Until next time.